Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. And thank you to Michael from Blue Mountain Home Inspections for sponsoring lunch today. So we're going to hear from Michael for a few minutes before we have Ricky go on.
All right. Well, hello. First of all, my name is Michael. I'm with Blue Mountain Home Inspections. I'm the owner. There's just two of us that are inspectors there, and we do, of course, home inspections and all the other stuff, environmental testing, well, septic, radon, all that stuff. So we're one of the one-stop shops. And the first thing, we've only got a few minutes here. So the first thing I'd like to know is who you are a little bit. Anybody here just been a realtor for less than a year? Kind of a couple newbies. Anybody used us before? Aha, yes. And who's here has been a realtor longer than 5? Quite a few. Well, in that case, there's not going to be a lot I'm going to be able to tell you about home inspection that you don't already know. So I thought maybe this few minutes that we have, I'd ask you guys some questions. So one of the things, can anybody come up with anything that you think would be helpful for home inspectors to know, or that we could do better, or that we could just help you with to make things life easier for you? Has anybody got anything with that? Yes.
So when you confirm an appointment with the client, just make sure they know you need your time ahead of time before they arrive.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, they'll be right on you like white on rice.
Yeah, what we do with that is, I always say, they're welcome to attend, especially at the end, but we don't mind them being there during the inspection, as long as they want to be there to kind of feel the space out. Sometimes that's nice because they didn't get a lot of time before spending time there, and they need to measure. I tell them to bring along a notebook and a tape measure and such, but that I can't really let you follow me around because that distracts me and I'll forget what I was going to say or what I was looking at. So the best job I can do for you is if we meet at the end, but I don't mind them being there during. A lot of people don't want them anywhere near there, but I think it's just kind of a nice time for them to spend some time there. So good thoughts. Any other suggestions or thoughts? Yeah.
I found it helpful, Michael, when you presented the HomeSpun. You mentioned you'll have a tool for having the report ready right after the inspection.
Yeah,
that's super helpful. And then having a consultation too, because there's a lot of stuff in that report that doesn't really matter that much. So being able to know is actually important to bring up.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we've gotten to where we almost always have the report in their inbox before we leave the property. So unless we don't have good connectivity, we can't upload the report, that kind of thing. It might take an hour for us to get back to where we have some internet access. But we try to be quick like that because it's important to everybody to get that information as quickly as possible. Anybody else? Yes.
How do you deal with it when a seller wants to follow you around when the buyer is the one that is paying the home inspection?
It doesn't happen very often, but I tell them that that's not how this works. Unfortunately, I understand that you want to know what everything we find out, but in this case, I have to kind of go do this myself and let the buyer know, and then they come to you with whatever they might want to ask you for, or they might not want to ask for anything. But I do need to be on my own again so that I don't lose focus, because that's the biggest thing. I've had people follow me around when I first started, and I'll be looking at something and then they ask the question and I'll realize a day later, I forgot that thing I was looking at. So it's just, we do the best job for everybody involved if we can kind of be on our own until the end. But boy, is it important for them to be there at the end, or through Skype or through anything else, so that they can get their eyes on what's wrong. Now, not everybody does that, but we're very open to that, and we hope they'll do it because it's the best way. Yes.
If there's only 2 of y'all, who do you coordinate with your pest, with your well, with your septic, all that?
Yeah, we contract out most of that. We do everything except pest and septic and well. That's contracted out, but we do all the scheduling for us.
Do you use the same people?
Yes.
Who do you use?
We use Nealon Coal for pest and Asheville Well and Septic for the septic and well.
Okay.
The Asheville Well and Septic's been, I'm not trying to toot their horn, but they've just been so good. We've had so much trouble with some other companies with communication, getting things done, that it's just, we found these guys and we really got to have good luck with them as far as contacting the sellers and the buyers and the realtors and letting them know what's going on, all of that. And that's really important. more important than getting an inspection for a few dollars less.
And they go to all the different counties that you work in?
Yes. Yeah, and we do all of Western North Carolina. So, man, I've been in Charlotte for inspections. So it's, yeah, we go everywhere. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to say before I end up and I wish we had a lot more time, but we don't. But I always want the realtors that use us, and I use any home inspectors really, to, if you can find it within yourselves when you go to a home inspection and you look at the report with the buyer and you're going, well, that's kind of weird. And you get somebody out there and take all the time to get a contractor out there to look at this, and they say, well, that home inspector doesn't know what they're doing. This is nothing wrong with this. We never get to hear that as home inspectors. We might be calling something out wrong all the time and we don't realize it, and nobody tells us. So I implore you all, when something like that happens, to please let us know and put us in contact with the contractor that came out there, not to get crossways with them, so we can both learn, so that we don't do it again the next time, because it happens. And you all know that you can have home inspection reports on the same house all within the same week, and they'll all say something different. None of them will be exactly the same. So it's really important to us if you can have that kind of rapport with us and communicate with us, because I want to learn if I'm doing something that isn't quite correct, or I thought it was supposed to be 3 feet, but it's really 4 feet. I would love to know, so we don't keep making the same mistake, and that we can help you and your buyers the best way we can. So, any questions for me? Okay. I hope you learned something this afternoon, and I hope you give us a shot, and we can get on your list of home inspections.
Thanks again for
Thank
lunch.
you.
Thank you. So very grateful for Ricky Hurley from the planning department at Town of Woodfin to come and talk to us about some steep slope, short-term rentals, maybe conditional zoning, that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yes to all. Yes to all. Good afternoon. I think a couple of y'all know me from the city of Asheville. I was there about 12 and a half years. So I've been local in Asheville area for 13 years. And anyway, followed Mrs. Tuck over from Asheville to Woodfin. So it's been great over there. Anyway, but again, my name is Ricky Hurley. I've been a planner in North Carolina for about 25 years, mostly the middle and western part of the state. Worked in a lot of smaller jurisdictions. The largest I've been in is Greensboro for about 4 years, and I've just kept moving west from there. So hopefully my wife has said we're staying in Asheville, so she's threatening to leave me if we leave Asheville. So we're here. And a couple of y'all may have already, let's see here, which way's down? Do I need to hit a clicker? Let me just make sure. Yeah, make sure I'm not. There you go. Clicker.
Did Shannon recruit?
She let me know the job was open. She let me know the job was open. And if you know as well, I think a lot of y'all have dealt with Marie Biddix. Marie worked at the city as well. Marie works with me. She is a great asset to the town as well. She's been in local government for about 6 years herself, and she's doing most of your day-to-day permitting. So you're probably going to interact with her or with your clients on renovation questions or short-term rental questions, but we tag team it day in, day out. And this week she's out, like last week I was out, so I am there on the spot today. All right, let's see what we got here. So I think everybody always wants to know, this is a couple questions we got. Steep slope. So in February of 22, the town did adopt a steep slope ordinance. A couple key takeaways for y'all is 2,200 foot is the line that you need to find first on the county's website, find 2,200 foot elevation, and the property has to be 20% average natural slope. If you've not used the slope calculator tool that the county has, that is the one I go to. It's a pretty doggone good slope tool. I think it's WNC slope tool. it will run just a little bit high. So it runs a little bit high, but that's nuances. But 20%. So if you're in, then you're in. So for new development, that's a 1.5 acre lot size, just 1.5. It does limit the amount of grading and impervious area. I think everybody here, y'all are professionals, know what impervious area is. And then the biggest question comes up is all of the existing lots. Like, what happens if I have a lot that's 1/2 acre or 1/4 acre in Reynolds Mountain or Sant Patana or Crest Mountain? The answer is your limits on grading and impervious do apply. But it's not like Asheville's where it's a sliding percentage where it's like 15% or 20%. There's a grant of like 0.3 for grading. So you get an automatic grant like 13,000 square feet of grading. So if you have a small lot, you've got something to work with. So feel free to check with us. Is there any kind of general questions on steep slope? Yes.
So the percentage of grading and impervious, is that a percentage of the 1.5 and the 1.5 is the minimum lot size?
Yeah. So if you're creating new, it's 1/2 acres. It's just a flat 1/2. And for new lots, yes, it's a percentage, but it really doesn't kick into percentage until you get to 2 acres. So 1/2 acre, you get that 0.3. So all those lots get that guaranteed of like 13,000 and some square foot. It's like 13,000, like 69 or 70. It's 13,000. So you automatically get that grant. So it really is beneficial to your smaller lots that are 1/2 acre, 3/4 acre. I think and just let you know, your clients, where that kind of gets a little sideways is when we start getting that 1.5 acre and 3/4 push into 2, because I guess when you have buyers that are getting close to 2 acres, there's an assumption I can do more. They're building a bigger home. It's typically more expansive. They're looking for views. They are still bound to that 0.3 grading. So there's a little bit of expectations that kind of get misaligned when we start getting above 1.5 acres on existing lots. The percentage is 15% grading when you hit north of 2 acres. So if you got a 10-acre lot, then you got 1.5 acres of grading to do. So we don't have that many big lots in town left, but there's room there for that.
So that was over 3. 15% is over
2 acres. So if you actually run the math, 2 acres and 15% is basically 0.3. So that's kind of where it intersects. That's where that kind of incongruity of expectation by your customer. So, and we'll be glad to, if you have anybody, send the customer to us, or if you want to ask, we'll be glad to answer that question, look at it for you specifically.
Are there variances? I know we run into this on steep slopes where you had to get a driveway in and created over the minimum in terms of disturbance. Is there variances for situations like that?
We have had one variance because of previous development caused or utilized the disturbed area. Like basically when they constructed the subdivision street, they basically encumbered or used all of their grading area in that development from 10 years ago. And like you said, it was such a slope to climb. They had to like pull the house forward, and they worked on getting a variance. I mean, it's not something we encourage. It definitely needs to be a hardship of the land. So the customer really needs to be checking to make sure that the house site is the only location that you could feasibly build on. And this is the absolute least amount of grading to achieve buildableness of the lot. So we'll have to really vet it. We'll have to dig in. It's hard. And I don't want anybody to approach us because they want a 4,000 square foot house when maybe a house of 2,200 or 2,500 might fit on the lot without the variance. So, can you make reasonable use of the property? But Yes, the short answer is yes. Is it possible? Yes, you can always ask. But I do not want to give anybody the false sense of oppression. You know, there's some jurisdictions where if you show up with a heartbeat, you pay application fee, and you can, y'all smile because you know there's jurisdictions, and you make any reasonable request, and nobody shows up at the meeting, it gets approved. Signs, setbacks, whatever. That's not the vibe I have found in Asheville or Woodfin. Is I wouldn't expect that. So just make sure that some of your clients understand that showing up with a payment and a reason may not get them there.
You mentioned the steep slope calculator. Does that show you for the lot? Like, will it show you the percentages for an entire lot, or how does that work? I haven't used that.
Yeah, so you get the PIN number from the county tax map, plug it in, and it gives the average of the overall lot. So if it's a 3-acre lot or an acre lot, it's going to average in your very steep part that might be 45, and then you might have a little bench in there that's mountain flat of 20,
Right.
and then it drops off again at 30. It's going to take all that and may give you a number of like 29.
Right.
You're like, well, it says it's 29%. It's not too steep. You're like, there's a flat area, Ricky. There's a flat area. And some people say there's a flat spot that I built a house. It's 12%. I'm not subject. No, the average of the lot.
So that's what you're going off of.
Yeah, we're looking at the entirety of the lot. Yeah, it's the, I can send it out, but it's the Buncombe County Steep Slope Tool. I think it's the WNC Steep Slope Tool. Let me try to find it here if you want to. It's useful because county uses it. Asheville, I was at Asheville. I had to deal with it a lot. It was at the city we used it. So it's a very good resource. It gives a good idea. And especially when you get questions about lots 48%.
What if it hasn't been recently surveyed or looked at, and how would that work?
Well, what they've done with the tool is they flew LiDAR from a plane. So they shot the lasers down. So it's not survey accurate. So if you send a surveyor, pay them however many $1,000s to do the actual calculation. But it's so close, it's crazy. I mean, it's mind-boggling that you know that you could have a lot that's 19.5%, and the surveyor does a hand calculation field, and it's like 19.2 or 18.9. You're like, really? It's crazy. But they use the laser, and it flashes back, and they've mapped the entire county. So yeah. We will take, if you hire a surveyor and the surveyor goes out and hand calculates, says, Ricky, it says 20.1 on the tool, but the surveyor went out and said it's 19.8. I will take the surveyor's information because he is a design professional with a seal. So there's not that much of discrepancy in it. It gets a little bit more like 1%, let's say. I'm not over explaining, but I'll tell you this, but 1%. When you get 1% at like a 48% slope lot, there's a bigger degree, right? 1% of 48 is a lot more than 1% of 15. So.
Can you combine the numbers in that? Can you add the numbers together and they're combined?
No, it's just the tool calculates based on that PIN number itself. And the problem is that if you got a 10 acre, that's 25 and a 1 acre of 30, it's not simple as adding the numbers and dividing by 2 because the undulations, as you subdivide, it's going to recalculate because you can split off a really steep part. And the lot might say it's 25, but your buyer cut off half of it, and that could be a 55% slope. So one lot went to 55, the other went to 12, just because of the uniqueness of each one. So it's going to change every time there's a subdivision that occurs. It recalculates. Yes,
So
ma'am.
you're saying that 20% slope
Yeah.
has to be the majority of the lots?
That's the average for the lot. Yeah. So the average of the entire. So not just any spot, but the entire lot figured. All right. Everybody bored out of short-term areas for short-term rentals. Now you're bored on steep slope. All right. Short-term rentals, that's the one that everybody wants to talk about, right? That's the one y'all call. That we get calls about. So our ordinances did change in November of 2022. We basically do not allow any more short-term rentals in our residential zoning districts, not our 43, 21, 7, and 10, not Mountain Village.
Ricky, this is just Woodfin.
This is Woodfin, yeah. Ashley's got different, like, that's what I recognize it's what makes it hard for your job. It's what makes it hard for surveyors. It makes it hard for engineers, is that everybody has a different short-term rental ordinance, have a different minimum lot size, a different setback, a different landscaping standard. I mean, signage is y'all are trying to keep up with like 53 different ordinances and the jurisdictions across Libby and Sea. I got one. So, and I recognize that. That's why we try to be as helpful, is that we realize that you can't keep up with 53. I keep up with that. So that's kind of my and Marie's customer service philosophy, is that we realize that y'all have got a lot of moving levers with what you're going on. But so the only district right now that you could get a permit is our community shopping district. So it's not a complete utter ban. You know, in Asheville, you can't have any more new ones at all unless you're like doing a CZ. If there is a single family house that's on community shopping, you could potentially get a short-term rental permit to convert it from long-term residential to a short-term lodging use. Just be aware that the property owner can only own one short-term rental in Woodfin. So that if they already have a house that they're renting out, whether it's in R7 or highway community shopping, they cannot buy another one. They can keep what they got, but they can't add to their portfolio. Yes, sir.
Can you give some example areas of within limits where community shopping zoning is?
Yeah. So basically, Weaverville Road is the main corridor. There's a tiny part at the end of Craggy Bridge. And actually Elk Mountain Road, where Town Hall's at, there's a little bit on the east side where the Asheville Yoga. There's some areas where Elkwood and the Kirby's at, that Brookdale, that's community shopping in Reynolds Mountain. So it's kind of a very linear strip. And I'll show you the zoning map toward the end, and it shows the slope.
So Ricky,
Yes, sir.
I remember talking about this a bit at the meeting lots are a few months back. Can you give some context for why they put such restrictive STR laws into place in Woodfin?
Yeah. So what was weird is the previous ordinance was for R7 and R10, which coincidentally were the older housing stock. I kind of call it old Woodfin. It's kind of that area along Elk Mountain, south of Old Beaver Dam, along Weaverville Road, Lookout, Riverside Drive. That's really where a lot of the mill houses were at. That's actually where the most affordable homes were in town. So instead of actually like encouraging the residents to live and like share their home, what happens, people actually come in and bought houses and converted the whole house to a short-term rental. So it's basically a lodging unit in a residential neighborhood. And so we were having erosion of our most affordable housing units were being converted to the lodging. Whereas, you know, not saying it's the best thing, but if you convert a $900,000 or $1.5 million home to short-term rental, you're probably not really eroding a housing stock that the majority of the population is trying to find. You know, there is a demand for that housing stock, but as like I've heard, is that anything under 500,000 is like bloody meat to sharks. So it's pretty desperate under 400,000. So why would you convert your 900 square foot mill houses that maybe they're 80, 90-year-old, maybe need a little bit of work, but that's still housing for somebody to get in and that's kind of stable and people can do improvements. So,
Do you have any kind of homestay or anything allowed, like the city of Asheville does?
yeah, we actually added that in. I'm glad you asked. We did add that option, put it on the books. People were doing it. So we have homestay. So that's allowed in the residential district. So we have several people that are doing it. Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to clarify too, are people who are doing whole unit or whole house were allowed to continue as long as they reached out for 30 days?
Yeah.
Ordinance?
Yeah.
What was that process like? What was the outreach like to get the word out to those folks?
Well, as far as outreach, there was a lot of community meetings around it with the planning board, the town posted a website. We didn't have a list of everything. We didn't know who were doing what, but there was a lot of advocacy by owners that had short-term rentals. And we tried to make sure that I think it was they moved slow. I think it felt like it moved slow during the summer last year. It took a while to get through June, July, August to get to the point of adopting an ordinance. And then I think, which is unusual, very unusual, is that the town recognized that people were operating and potentially didn't have a permit because they had heard or talked to a neighbor or I don't know, prior staff and said, yeah, you're good. So we allowed that 30-day window.
What if they didn't register in the 30 days?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're starting to run into now. We're actually in a big push of enforcement. So if you didn't become lawfully established and you didn't secure a permit, then you'll have to either convert to long-term or somehow cease operation. So we're working with some that didn't obtain a permit. Now, so far it hasn't been, I'll say this, there hasn't been a huge number that showed up in the office that didn't have a permit, that were unaware. They've been operating for 4 or 5 years. If anything, what we've had is we've noticed that the ones that don't have a permit may have picked up in the past year while the whole conversation. They're either out of town, California, Missouri, no ties to anybody that maybe was a real estate agent, completely spec investment. So we're working through that enforcement process right now. So, yes, sir.
So I have a client that had registered short-term rentals. So you all had notice of who they were and what they were doing, and they didn't receive a 30-day notice or anything. And they got a letter of non-compliance. So if they were registered, why were they not automatically grandfathered in?
Yeah, why not? What happened is the town, we went digital a year and a half ago. So, Asheville has Excel, county has Excel. We were a full paper. Because everything was paper prior to me and Marie. And so we have done record keeping has been a little bit more harder to determine. Like there'll be files with some person that was there before prior tenure. They may have a record or a spreadsheet of short-term rentals or new single families in a box. And so when that person left, and that kind of got cleaned out of their desk and stuck over here. And then a new person comes, and then that person left, and there's more records over here. So we've been working through trying to find all the paper records. I probably had 10 or 12 people receive a notice that had a permit. They brought the permit in, and we have scanned that and resolved their notice. So if your client has that, if they want to stop by, we will scan that copy and we will close the violation out because they obtained the permit. They're lawful.
Does that apply to the one STR in Woodfin as well?
Yeah, if they had permits for 2, they obtained them lawfully, or 3, whatever. If they've got permits for all 3, bring them in, and they can't go get number 4.
No,
but they got 3. Yeah, but they can. We honor that because they lawfully established. So. So yeah, and it sells, they sell. So that's probably the biggest thing is like you're having people that are selling to outside investors. So the permit will convey to the next person as long as there's not a lapse.
Where do you find the permit that, like, for example, I have investor buyers and we want to find out if it's allowed, if it's been advertised that you do short-term rentals, but I want to confirm it is, they have a permit, and which website should I go to check it out?
Just call us. We'll check because there's some, it's going to be hard because not everything's been established as a new permit because there's some in an enforcement module. And so we're not creating an STR permit. We're saying they're legal non-conforming.
So just give me the address of the property.
Yeah. And we'll be glad to respond to you about it. And I think everybody knows you're familiar with like Asheville. STR is less than a month duration.
How about long-term landlord? You only have one STR, but what about long-term landlord? Are they prohibited from getting the STR because they're already a landlord? Or can they be a landlord and then also have one STR?
You could own 100 houses for long-term rental, and that's totally outside of I don't even consider that.
Okay.
In fact, only thing I would care about is if you had 2 short-term rentals.
Right.
So if you owned 100 houses and 99 of them were long-term and you bought one that was short-term, you're fine. So I don't, long-term is totally outside of my world to worry about. Any other questions about short-term? I know y'all get a lot of questions, but we'll be glad to answer. Just feel free to call or email. We don't mind answering the questions because I would rather really help your customer or you on the front end on this investment or potential purchase and then move here part-time, whatever scenario they got. We definitely would like to help y'all up front. Conditional zoning. This is another change that Mrs. Tuck worked on before I arrived, but was added about 15 months ago, I think. And it's for larger projects. And so the biggest thing to know is it's for either 20 dwelling units. So that could be 20 single family houses that are a subdivision. It could be a 20 unit apartment building or buildings. It could be or a 30,000 square foot commercial residential project. So, so we had like a more recent, like Hawthorne done like an independent senior living facility. It was about 90,000 square feet, 4 stories tall. That went through a CZ. It wasn't really a dwelling unit because it's more of a congregate living type facility. So the square footage triggered it. Last night we had Charter Mountain got approved for 300 residential units. Existing development of Mountain Village come back from 176 for 300. That got CZ approval last night. It's mostly detached single family, again over 20 units.
What is the roughly like the duration of, applying for the conditional zoning and then getting through the board, like 2 or 3 months, or I guess it depends on the size of the project.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like dealing with me directly, it's if you applied, if somebody applied, 2 weeks ago, they would be going to planning board after Labor Day, and then we'd schedule them for October town council. I'd say allow about 3 months is what you need for your neighborhood meeting, planning board, town council. What I find is that more often it's there's like some inquiries, and then there's like some design work, and there's a back revisit again for another inquiry, sit down with us again, and then they're gone again. Charter Mountain inquired in January. And so here we are mid-August. I think they were shooting for June or July. So it took about 6-7 months, but that's also design professional workload and time turnaround for them as well. So, but yeah, short answer is 2 to 3 months.
Ricky, what's the big deal, or what's special about New Mountain Village?
Well, Mountain Village is kind of like it's a pretty intense district, and it allowed basically there's no minimum lot size, there's no setbacks. It allowed for a range of single family, multifamily, duplex units. And so you could really cram a lot. I mean, you could take 10 acres and try to put 300 units on it. If it fits, the height and parking, you could put as many as you want to. And unfortunately, some of Mountain Village is in areas that, when the actual reality on the ground, are pretty rugged, especially even for the valley floor, they're pretty rugged. So if you looked at Charter Mountain last night, you look on the site plan, there's a lot of little valleys and hills that parallel to Riverside Drive. They intersected a T to Riverside Drive, and it's up and down and up and down. Even though it's 90 acres, the designer was like, he felt functionally that 300 units was about the limit that property could actually hold without literally going in like leveling the property like, like detonation, and which is too cost prohibitive. So there's a lot, oddly, I've noticed Woodfin is fairly rugged. It's got a lot of little bitty rolling valleys to it. There's some flat areas in Asheville, but it's not quite that flat in Woodfin if you get in there and move around a lot. But to say all that, there's a lot of areas that are zoned Mountain Village that that was just speculatively rezoned, and it was just basically here, do what you want to do, and without a plan, which could be very impactful on transportation or neighborhoods. So, but anybody, so if you want to rezone anything now today from whatever to a 1 acre mountain village for 2 houses, we're going to take you to a season. Olivet added on back when I arrived in the fall, added like probably a total of 20 lots, 19 lots, 2 places. And just the expansion was a CZ. It was just a major subdivision. But because it was an add-on, it was a CZ that went to city council. But they went right through it. Yes, sir.
Where does the lost project stand now? There's a lot of controversy over that a couple of years ago. Have they withdrawn it? Is it in limbo or what?
They filed an appeal. They filed an appeal, and that's not been heard yet. Appeal to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah. So that one's just waiting to be scheduled. Probably this fall is what I'm hearing. And the biggest part of that is the applicant proposes the condition. So if you see a lot of these that go through city council in Asheville, the larger projects, that's the same model. It's town planning board to city council. It's legislative. The last thing I had up here is planning board of adjustment. We just now have a single board. We had a board of adjustment and we had a planning board. Woodfin's kind of went back and forth on this. We'll just let you know that we have one single board now for these rezonings and special use permits. Yes,
So
sir.
you just mentioned that one development for the people. So this situation, how do you appeal planning board decision? You just go back to the same people and say, were you just kidding the first time?
Well, so the board setup is there's 7 members that are appointed, and they hear the legislative and administrative items like a rezoning or an administrative approval like a major sub preliminary plat. If we're doing a special use permit or appeal, we actually have 5 members that are appointed out of that to serve the quasi judicial part, with the other 2 are standby for alternates in case somebody doesn't show up, because we have a quorum of 5. Let me see if we 4 to hear. Yeah, but
Who's hearing the appeal but didn't hear the appeal before?
yeah, it's like most of the appeals you have, or I'll say this, aren't on you don't have an appeal on legislative decisions. You typically have it on either a quasi judicial or like an enforcement action. So most of the time an appeal is actually an enforcement. So if somebody has a junk vehicle or has a sign that we set an NOV on, they could appeal that to this board. So they would interpret to say, Ricky, you're incorrect in how you read the code, or no, Ricky, the sign's been there for 35 years. The Google Street View that you looked at, it was down for that one day. It's because it was being worked on and I've driven by it for 30 years and overturned my decision. So, but the board has to hear all the facts. It can be appealed, but I haven't seen, and variances aren't appealed to the Board of Adjustment back for a denial. That goes straight to Superior Court. So if the board was in a quasi judicial meeting and denied a variance or approved the variance, then the neighbors or the applicant would appeal straight to Superior Court. So it doesn't come back to this board anyway. Go to sleep here. I see it. I'm not the tech guy, right? Where is he now? Yes, ma'am.
What is the new mountain village district, like the area you're talking about?
There would just be a request for Mountain Village. It's just a new request for Mountain Village. We have some existing Mountain Village. And so you can still develop. So I have a couple pieces that are vacant. So if somebody wanted to build a house or two or four, if it's allowed in the district, then you could subdivide it into 3 or 4 pieces and put a house in each one. That doesn't require rezoning. We just look at those and say they are existing as long as they don't hit that CZ designation of 20 units, 20 lots, 30,000 square feet. Then that Mountain Village subdivision would move through with just administrative approval through me. And I actually talked to a guy this past week. So,
What I'm trying to ask was, how do you find that spot where you can put the new mountain village, like apply for that?
I think it's up to like, really, it's kind of really situationally, it's going to be like what's proposed, right? What is the character of the area? What road classification are you on? So there's a lot of, what's the height of the building? How much parking? Is it, if you were to put something probably like at the interchange of Elk Mountain Road and 1923, you're like putting together like a mixed use development.
Okay.
You're probably going to be looking at something more favorable as opposed to rezoning something up at 2,400 foot elevation to put in, 50 houses or a condo building. So
The roads is the most important part of the.
it's context. It's really context. And we do have a land use plan that's hopefully coming up for adoption in the next 6 months. So that's going to be real helpful as a guide for new rezonings, is to actually be able to say that this is the future growth corridor. This is more appropriate for the high density development. Right now, if you read Woodfin's, there's not really a land use map. It's just got like these policy statements about affordable housing, about schools. And
Will be helpful.
yes.
Has there been any community input in that process, kind of what the county did, or is it?
Oh yeah, there've been a lot. We have a steering committee. We did have some public engagement, 2 sessions back in April. We had stakeholder interviews. We've posted on our website. So we've tried to engage as much as possible. There was a phase 1 a year ago that there was a lot of community input. So there was like a phase 1 with a lot of community input. We're almost afraid we got fatigue of keep asking questions like, what do you want? What do you want? Short-term rentals, what do you want? And I think at some point that the community's like, please, I think maybe get over the finish line. But we're actually meeting next week on the 22nd to actually hopefully look at our first land use map draft. And so we'll be reviewing that with committee, which is a couple planning board adjustment members, a couple people from city council. And we'll be posting that hopefully soon on our website. And then we're going to shop that out for some more community input as we move into late September, early October. So I can share that with you. I'd be glad so you can share it with your group, just to make sure that everybody are aware, because we like the feedback. Because the more feedback we get, the better off we are.
Is that meeting I'm going to say?
Yeah. Yeah. 5 o'clock at Town Hall. That's one of my future slides, but
Okay.
I apparently either, I don't know what
You killed it.
I killed it. Sorry for anybody remote.
Wait a minute. Where's Woodfin get water?
So we don't actually have a water department. So everybody knows sometimes we have residents that try to pay their bill in our office, but we don't have a water department at all. So it's a separate authority. There's Woodfin Water. And Elkwood around the corner. We're trying to have improved communications with them. So we're talking to them. But I think they have their own reservoir up east of town. And then City of Asheville provides a little bit of water to them that they purchase. I think we understand they get a lot of water on the west bank of the river, out from Olivet and Olivet Road. I think that's really a repurchase for water out there. And they kind of supplement the water, but it's mostly City of Asheville, but a large portion is Woodfin itself.
The house that was an Asheville address, Woodfin water in town will be.
Yeah. 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 It's sort of those weird things.
And the Bluffs thing happened a couple of years ago. It was reported in the Asheville Citizen Times that Woodfin didn't have some of the original documents that had been filed by Woodfin were improper, and Bluffs was trying to use that against him. And has that whole controversy been resolved?
Yeah. So for me, I haven't been involved with the Bluffs at all. I'm late to the party, and so I'm going to actually be listening to on the side. I'll be supporting in that appeal. So I haven't dug into that at all because I haven't made any official decisions on that project at all.
Sure.
So unfortunately, I have I'm going to be learning as I go on that project.
Okay, but in terms of the legality.
Thank you, Brian.
Because that's what was alleged is that Woodfin's charter, or Woodfin's paperwork or something was improper. Has that piece of it been resolved?
Yeah, that part, I don't even know all that. That's why I'm sorry. I just don't even know anything about that project really at all. I know it's a Mountain Village zoning and they had applied and the property's changed hands. It's about my limit of knowledge on it.
So the applicant is appealing, it's not the original asset.
I don't believe so. I think the property's changed hands a couple of times.
Okay.
I don't know how many times itself.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of cover the comprehensive plan up here real quick. So we said it, it's hopefully at the end of this year, maybe January 2024. I don't know yet. We have an election coming up. We don't want to rush anything. So we're going to kind of see how that goes. Stormwater, just to let you know that we did adopt stormwater in the town as an ordinance. Buncombe County been applying their ordinance. Their staff been doing the reviews. That's probably more of interest to your customers that are actually commercial development because the county is under a huge development pressure already, and they're have a significant backlog, especially when there's resubmissions. So we're hoping that'll help the county staff out by us bringing it in-house. It helps your customer out as well by having a smaller office to deal with and just one less place to go to the county. They're still doing floodplain and still do building inspections. We will probably never take over building inspections. We'll see what happens with flood. But anybody started with the county, we're leaving with the county, unless the county is like in a mutual agreement. So there's conversations going on. Victoria's been great to deal with at the county and Nate as well. So we do everything. You can submit everything on our development portal. So the town's website. And I hope I don't break it again here. Let's see what happens. Okay. So Town of Wood. So it's woodfin-nc.gov. So not say radio buttons, but that's about the closest down here. But we have a development portal. It's not super sophisticated, but it does save you a trip having to drive in. So it's pretty much most people are going to be applying for a zoning compliance application, right? To build your house, do an addition deck, homestay permit. And it's a pretty simple, straightforward application. We got to work on it a little bit, but there's some duplicate questions. So you have to fill it in. But the idea is that you can apply online. You can resubmit to us, and you can get your permit emailed so you don't actually have to drive to Woodfin to actually conduct business with Marie or I. But we're glad to help you in person. So we've had people that want to fill out a paper application and scan the document, and I'm glad to help anybody with that too. So. everybody's kind of interested in zoning map. What does the zoning map look like? Because you're like, where's CS at? And y'all, don't let me talk. I talk sometimes, y'all. I'll try to wrap this up. Until I'm a little bit nerdy about zoning stuff. I decided I wanted to go and do land use planning when I was like in 7th grade. So if that tells you anything about, like, in the early 90s when there wasn't internet, I decided that I wanted to be a planner, and I done all my research by reading the newspaper. So I still have clippings. So I understood watershed regulations and stuff better than the county planner said when I was 14-year-old from the county I'm from. Let's see if this will turn on here. No legend-based map. Content. Oh, Jesus. Okay, there's some colors. So you see like a teal color here in the center. Those teal colors are the Mountain Village zoning districts. Crest Mountain's that bottom left leg. The red area is the community shopping. So that's basically Weaverville Road corridor. Ingalls and Pizza Hut, the very north end, that's the last. That's the end of the road for us. And then we're right down here where Broadway and 1923 come out of Asheville. And your yellow and orange is a residential district. Your purple is a residential district. So if I need to zoom in if you're interested, but that's kind of this is Reynolds Village right in this area. As you can see, kind of.
How many square miles? Which one is?
I haven't geeked out and figured that out yet. It's probably only about 7 or 8 square miles. We do not have an ETJ. The town hasn't had an ETJ. The state did away with specifically with Weavervilles and Asheville and Boone. They had special bills specifically targeted those 3 munis. We just didn't have one, and I don't think the town's interested at all in having an ETJ. So
it's confusing for us.
It is confusing. I think it's more, you see a little bit more practical when you have a county that's unzoned, more like Haywood or a Madison County with an unzoned, and you have a town that's, because you got free for all development out here in the county, and you got an area that's more urban right next to it. I think Buncombe's got some pretty decent land use regulations. So I don't think it's 100% necessary in this county. Any questions on the zoning map?
Is the teal there at the top, is that where Charter Village
Yep.
is building? Charter Mountain?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's it. The big blue.
Is that where the New Life Church is? Is that right?
I think New Life is down here.
Okay.
The big blue in the center, that's actually MSD. So we had some heavy industrial zoning. Weirdly enough, we have a lot of heavy industrial, but this is like the state correctional facility, and then the county's training center and the old landfill solar farm. So we have these big blue areas, but I kind of, like I tell my wife, and like Michelle said, Woodfin does a lot. You don't realize that Woodfin makes the county a lot livable. Like there's the sewer goes here. There's a county training center for police and fire. I mean, that's important for livability and recruitment. There's a correctional facility that's pretty big, right, wrong, and different. You got one somewhere in your region. We got one here. There's some former landfills that are in Woodfin for Asheville and Buncombe County. That's under this area too. And then the old city of Asheville. So there's right, wrong, and different. We have Kirby, the recycling that goes on in the county. That happens. Like, if you look at it, drive by casually, like, oh, that's not great use, but you realize that it's got to be somewhere. So something to be proud about, that a lot of recycling that occurs in the county happens in Woodfin. So kind of just own what you got. You think about those things. If we didn't have those services, how impactful it would be to the rest of the county if Woodfin didn't have it and it's close in.
Ricky, the development that's defunct by the old landfill, is there anything going on in that?
Altura?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing yet. I mean, with the Charter Mountain going on, that makes me wonder, because what I had heard is that the sewer, a lot of the sewer and water infrastructure was installed in Altura, but hasn't actually been activated or fully connected. And I know Charter Mountain is planning to bring the sewer line up from MSD and to their development. So that's going to bridge a big gap. So I wouldn't be surprised if next few years we see something happen, especially when there's a lot of road infrastructure already in place back in there. I'd have road back in there.
There's still some existing homes in there.
There's two. There's two homes in there. I think they're all well and septic, weirdly enough, but there's two houses in there.
Yeah.
Where do they get the electric from?
The Duke run the power back in there.
No.
Yeah.
So that's a sleeper. I'm just surprised it hadn't gone anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's close in, and housing so bad.
Yeah, it's been kind of weird. I feel like that all the older projects have come to life since I've been at Woodfin. Like we've had, as everybody's watched, Robin Hood's wrapping up, it's moving through its process. We've got Baird Cove Road townhomes that are moving forward. Charter Mountain's been through a couple times, and we have the Walnut Springs up in here, and that's building out. The townhomes seem to be pretty popular. And I'm hearing that they may move forward with phase 3 not too long in the future. So we still got development going on for Matana. So
Ricky, you mentioned that there's another former landfill in this area.
Yeah.
How many former landfills are there, and what's the plan to close this one and start the next one?
both of them are closed. Both landfills are closed. This one, I think I had heard in the comp plan process, is a former City of Asheville landfill. And there's like a golf course there for a little while.
Yeah.
And so there's like a brownfield site. So there's some areas that you can't build on, and there's areas that are buildable. So this one's I think in our comp plan, we've got a lot of interest because there's real good development potential with a future greenway along Beaver Dam Creek. It's in the heart of town, close to Weaverville Road. It would be great if we get something that could be fairly intense or a good complement to provide housing and a few commercial resources.
Yeah, I've been back. I'm just curious, the current landfill is.
It's way north. It's out north of Weaverville. So we have that one, and then we have the old county landfill, and then they kicked it on out toward up
Is
there.
the one that you were talking about near Goodman Road?
Yeah, this is Goodman.
Dusty?
Yeah, this is Goodman right in here. And then
there's another one?
there was the county here. That's where the solar farm's at. And then there was an old, I believe, City of Asheville here that's older than that. So that was probably when before Woodfin was incorporated.
I have no idea.
That's what we heard, is that there's like brownfields there. So a big portion that's not buildable.
Rick, you're in ArcGIS. Do we have access to that? Or
Yeah.
are we linked? We did.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
The URL for that?
Yeah, I can send that out, share. It's off the town website too, off planning, but yes, I'll be glad to show them.
Yeah, just send me whatever.
I can probably, very worst, I can probably just send a slide to you. That way you can have it.
Well, I have all your slides.
Okay. You got all the slides. We'll just share them. I don't care. It's fine. Town ordinances, just so you know, we're on Municode. Asheville used to be on Municode, if you're familiar with that. Just be aware that we have a zoning code that's separate from our steep slope, which is separate from our signs, which is separate from subdivision. It's not a UDO. It's multiple chapters. So just be aware that you've got to flip. But I'll be glad to help you. And I know everybody's going to get on with their life here. And then y'all are welcome to email Maria or I at this planning email address that goes to both of us. So like this week, she's out. Last week I was out. Instead of emailing Ricky, you can email both. Me and her both get it. One of us can respond, and you're not sitting there like, dang, I got to wait for a week and a half for this guy to get back in town to hopefully hear back. So
Does Woodfin have something yet where you can sign up for notifications on like the board of adjustment or planning board or town council meeting? Or
yeah, that's the part I need to ask Marie. There are where to sign up so that there's an update to a page that you get an email notification that the page has been updated.
Oh,
So in that PBOA, so you can sign up. I'll ask when I get back,
that'd be great.
and I can send that to you so that everybody can sign up and just be aware of it. We post an agenda.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
All right, so I've talked a lot. Hopefully that's helpful for y'all.
Definitely. Very.
I'm still trying to figure out signs there. Y'all don't need signs.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And you are okay with me sharing your slides?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, because those are links. That way people can get to it.
And then, yeah, I would absolutely love to sign up for notifications. You know, I do for other municipalities and stuff. So